I'm Alicia.
And I'm Maddie.
And welcome to the Fangirl Diaries, a podcast where we talk about our obsessions,
Reminisce about our teen icons,
and explore the books, movies, and shows that made us the incredibly nerdy 30-somethings that we now are.
Well, today we're talking about probably one of my favourite, or at least most watched TV shows, Supernatural.
And we also have to draw a very clear division from the start here, because on some episodes, we have a shared level of obsessiveness and knowledge about something. I experienced a deep obsession at the beginning of the whole Supernatural show, but will have to put my hands up and say, you are very much, you have continued in your loyalty to this show.
Well, not as long as some people have. I think I was trying really hard to remember when we first watched it, and I really, really couldn't tell you exactly how we came across it, but it was definitely in sixth form that the both of us kind of watched it and got into the characters and got into it. But yeah, my obsession certainly carried on. Like, my actual biggest memories of the show are definitely like at university when I was like procrastinating from doing work or like feeling a bit sad about something. I'd always like go online and see, like, because they were coming out week by week, but they were coming out in the States. So I would like go online and see if I could definitely not illegally try and find the latest episode and like stream it on this terrible quality like online streams that you thought you were going to get like banned from the internet for using. And that was like throughout the whole of university. That was probably like my biggest core memories of this show. So yeah, it's probably quite a bit different to you.
I just love that a show about demons, ghosts, and monsters is your comfort show.
I know.
That's what you're saying, basically.
It is my comfort show. It's true. It's true.
This was your procrastination show. And I don't know what that says about it, about you, about its quality, or about its content, but we're going to go with it. In terms of when this came into our lives, though, you were spot on. So we were 17. I have no memory of it predating that time.
No.
And that was absolutely when we were really into it. And we certainly were very heavily into it at that stage.
Yeah.
I can't remember the sort of origin story of either of our obsession with this. I don't remember which of us introduced it to who, but actually, one memory of it I do have is it then, we were trying to spread it outwards to others. And there was an illicit sort of DVD box set exchange that took place when, do you remember we went to see, separate obsession, the 7th Harry Potter film, part 2?
Oh, yeah.
And before we could sit down, it might have been you giving them to her or her giving them to you, but either you or Danny handed each other a sort of shopping bag of DVD box sets of like the first 5 seasons of Supernatural.
Yeah, I was buying them in half seasons at a time. Like, that's how many you could buy in a DVD set. They came in half seasons. So I think I had sets, seasons 1 to 4 as like a bulk that I bought, because I think when we started watching them was around about when seasons 3 or 4 were coming out. And then after that, I would buy each set in half seasons. Like, the amount of money that was spent was probably way too much, but it was excellent. Maybe I'll jump into giving some context for those who don't know as much about Supernatural as I do, about what this show is about.
Yes, what is it?
What is
Tell
Supernatural?
People, what is it?
So, Supernatural started out life as a kind of Monster of the Week TV series on the CW, and it was about 2 very attractive brothers following in their father's footsteps in the family business. And the family business was hunting demons. So each week, the brothers would rock up along the American highway to some kind of new town in their classic car playing classic rock, and they would discover some kind of spooky goings-on in the town. They'd impersonate authority figures and scour the early internet to solve this mystery and kill the monster every week. But this kind of early format very quickly morphed and escalated wildly over 15 seasons, which actually made it the longest running show on the CW and one of the longest running shows on American TV ever.
That's wild. Sorry, we just do have to repeat that. Give us that fact again.
It was 15 seasons long, and it is one of the definitely in the top 20 longest TV shows running in the US ever.
I feel like I asked you to repeat that just to excuse the fact that I definitely lost track of it around, and this was not anything to do with my enjoyment of it, its quality. I think I was probably working harder at my studies. I was thinking, why did I not carry on watching?
All of this nonsense.
What happened? Were we busy with something else? Or I don't know. But yeah, I lost track of it around season 4, maybe.
Yeah, so that was about the time when it started to escalate away from this format, and it became this kind of huge epic story about angels and demons and the fights between like God and the devil and this like kind of much bigger picture, which was wildly different to where it started and how it managed to eke out 15 seasons of episodes.
Maybe that's why I couldn't get back into it, because whenever it was sort of on in the later years, and I thought, oh, good, there's Sam and Dean again, hooray, like, I'll watch this. I thought because it had moved away from that Monster of the Week format, I genuinely felt that I was watching a television show. It's a little bit like diving into Game of Thrones and thinking, I missed the last season, I don't know what's happened.
You can't keep up.
I couldn't keep up. And suddenly I felt a little bit unable to re-engage with the thing that, as I was doing a little bit of a rewatch in preparation for this, I was picking random episodes from sort of seasons 1 through 3. And you can do that.
Yeah, it's excellent.
It's a different demon, a different ghost, some of them sound bizarre, haunted car at one point. Do you think that the success of this had anything to do with earlier formats of this? Like, do you remember we were really into like Goosebumps and stuff?
Yeah, of course.
Children.
Yeah, it hooked you in those early seasons by each individual episode being like its own self-contained mystery and a little, like an exciting thing that you could solve, and you were rooting for them within the context. And then it had a rough overarching storyline for each season, but really only the kind of first and last few episodes of each season really covered that. In the middle, you were just kind of following week on week. It's actually surprisingly similar to the original format of something like Doctor Who, where each week they like travel to a different place in time and space and solve a mystery, and then like, yeah, there might be an overarching story over the season, but really you're interested in like the what's going on that episode, and you can pick and choose as you watch. But yeah, it definitely morphed away from that after about seasons 5 and 6.
I wonder whether there's any connection. I'm just still interested in the fact that this was your like comfort television. But that format, I mean, you get that every episode offers you that nice, neat resolution. The monster is defeated. At any point in those early seasons, did you really think Sam or Dean was in peril on an episode-by-episode basis?
Oh, well, we can talk about that, because over the course of those 15 seasons, would you like to guess how many times, first of all, Sam died?
Oh, I remember at least 2. But because I was a Dean fan, maybe those were less resonant. It's going to be loads. Yeah. They were always dying, but this was always an overarching season structure rather than episode. How many times? Loads. How many?
So I think, having tried to look up the official numbers online in preparation, is, obviously hotly contested what counts as dying. Sometimes they just like go to purgatory or go to hell and then come back. Does this count? Who knows? But it turns out Sam died 9 times. And Dean potentially died 111 times.
I can't even get into how. I thought you were going to say less, and I was like, was he just a bit more careful?
No.
He just avoided the less scary demons?
There was a specific episode, and it's actually one of my favourite episodes, where Dean dies 100 times in the episode. Like, it's basically like Groundhog Day. He goes, every time he dies, he gets reset to the same place and time, and wakes up again. So instead of like falling asleep, he's dying every single time. So technically he dies like 100 times in that episode. So that skews it slightly, but still the other 11 times.
I'm sure it's relatively evident at this stage that this was one of the obsessions among our group of friends that was probably mainly a thing for you and I and didn't necessarily extend beyond just our interest and maybe one or two select others.
And I think that's true, but online, it is possibly one of the most obsessed over shows of all time. And that's what kept it going for all of that time, is this fangirliness really like kept it alive, and the online obsessions, the going to conventions, all of that stuff is what kept it going for 15 seasons. And I have this theory that I would like to run by you, which is that...
I'm ready for this theory.
My theory
about this theory so
about
much.
The writing of this show is that they thought, the writers, when they were writing it, they thought they were writing a story and a show for boys and for guys. Because they were writing about these two brothers who go around in a car, they listen to classic rock music, it's quite scary, it's quite violent and quite, spooky. It's also quite, it starts off kind of quite conservative. It's about, family values and doing the best for, your father's, following in your father's footsteps. They thought they were writing this show for boys, and only girls ended up watching it and were completely obsessed with it. And over time, they had to really morph what they were doing when they realised who that actual audience was.
I'd never thought of it actually as it being a male fantasy, but when you put it like that, I think it has merit. But that is completely turned on its head by the fact that I too am only really aware of the very strong female fan base for this show. Yeah. Why, Madeline, do we think that might be?
Well, I think we ought to talk about the characters of Sam and Dean,
yes,
the two brothers.
Yes, you're right, because we've name dropped them.
How would you characterise the two of them and their differences, how they're represented in the show?
Okay, because Sam and Dean really are the show. At least until a little bit later when other characters come in.
Yeah.
So these are the two central heroes. They're two brothers, Sam and Dean Winchester. Dean is the older brother. And the show pitched them perfectly to be a bit of a foil for one another and to let those wonderful brotherly tensions play out. Dean, the older brother, is protective of Sam. He even calls him, he sort of infantilizes him a bit, doesn't he? He calls him Sammy. A bit. And Sam equally is constantly seeking, until he develops a bit more as a character, Dean's approval. Both of them are heavily conscientious about, as you said, living up to the values instilled in them by their father. But I feel like I said enough sensible stuff there. We can now objectify them a little bit, because these two men, whoever did the casting on this show, I will try and not dive into my total bias yet, but they're both very nice looking.
Yeah.
Two very handsome men were cast. Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki.
Yeah.
That took me a second. I think
you can forget it.
You can tell my preference is for Jensen. Jensen Ackles plays Dean, the older brother, and Jared Padalecki is Sam.
Yeah. And they're quite different in character too. You know, Dean's kind of fun and silly and just throws himself into things and is a bit reckless, whereas Sam is the studious one, he's meant to have gone off to university, and he's a bit more, he worries about things more and is more serious. And I think that kind of the kind of dynamic of two not necessarily having to be brothers, but those two that odd pairing in a way going on an adventure is quite a classic format that works really well.
Yeah. Who did you like better?
Obviously Dean.
Obviously. Well, no, there will be some Sam girls out there. Was there ever a moment or an episode where you thought, I'm swapping allegiance? No, me neither.
No, and I feel like we're not representative of the fandom as a whole, so we should say that.
That's right. This is a personal preference. Yeah. Other people like Sam.
We're both definitely Dean people.
We're definitely Dean people. He
was the rebel. He was funny. He was cute and silly, but also just really confident and sexy. We were Dean people.
It was also his car. I'm just going to put that out there.
It was his car.
Dean spends most of this show in love with, well, a series of women, but then also fundamentally is Car and Sam. I think the hierarchy is that the Car first, then Sam, then a series of women.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that, again, you know, there aren't really many interesting female characters at the beginning. There's a few that kind of move the plot along, but they're not, you know, it really was about those two guys and their relationship with their father. And again, as they tried to develop and understood who their audience were, they did bring in more female characters, but it took a long time.
It took so long that I couldn't tell you who those characters were.
Yeah.
And I like this idea of yours about it being initially conceived of as a sort of male fantasy or escapism on television, because one of the notes that I wrote was, I remember finding it really flimsy in its inclusion of female characters.
It is.
And its use of them, almost embarrassingly so.
Yeah.
That was something that on a rewatch I thought, wow, this is really aged.
Yeah.
That you didn't just get the monster of the week, but you got like the hot girl of the week as well. No woman in this show isn't, decked out in kind of full makeup. They're either in the middle of like the random countryside or like a town or somewhere, and whichever girl they encounter must be the single hottest person in that town.
Yeah, and
every
Dean
time
has to flirt with them in order to get something or whatever it is.
Entirely. And this was not enough to put me off watching the show. But on a rewatch, I was struck by, wow, this was really more imbalanced than I thought that it was.
Yeah, and I think it does get better, but I mean, I'm going to put all my cards on the table here and say that even I didn't get through all 15 seasons. I probably dropped out around season 8 or 9. And I think
that's
there's
like halfway.
I know. And I think there's a point at which people agreed that the quality kind of dropped. And then I really actually still want to pick up the last few seasons, because I have heard on the internet grapevine the last few seasons are actually really excellent, but I still haven't seen them. But again, I know that some of that stuff around female characters is meant to be addressed in all these many seasons that even I haven't watched.
I feel I'm too far out of it to be able to dive back in, but for those first few seasons I was there. I mean, Dean was front and center on our wall collage of the general people that we were obsessed with. Maybe one of our friends put like a little Sam image in the corner somewhere, but really there was a lot of Dean. I
think the other thing that makes it that made it like quite iconic and quite like, you know, the things that really stood out as different about it was the fact that it had such excellent music. It was...
Oh my gosh, yes.
Just, I mean, I put together playlists. I scrolled through Spotify to try and, like, find every single song in every episode. Because, I mean, they must have spent a fortune on the rights to some of that music in the first season when it was a tiny show. But yet they were playing, like, you know, AC/DC and, like, these huge hits.
You're right, on this random CW show.
Tiny little show that they didn't know whether it was going to be successful.
Maybe that's why they couldn't afford any women.
Yeah, maybe.
couldn't pay any actresses. I'm gonna hope it was that.
Yeah. But no, I mean, it's one of these things. It's actually a bit like Glee, where embarrassingly there are certain songs that I associate with this TV show more than like I actually know the song from any other context. I'm like, I mean, the classic is Carry On My Wayward Son, which they reused throughout the show.
Yes,
as
for
like
the recap.
The recap,
yeah.
Normally at the end of every season, on like the recap of season, you know, the last episode of season 3, you're going to recap the whole of season 3 so you know what's happening. And they just do this epic montage of everything that's happened, always to Carry On My Wayward Son. And it's so emotional, and it's just like, oh, it's incredible.
Madeline's doing a lot of hand gestures right now. A lot of hand gestures.
I speak with my hands.
But you're right, that song was very powerful. I can't remember a context for it divorced from this show at all. And the use of music was really a strength, but paired with the fact that its setting was, well, it didn't have one. It's a road trip show.
Yeah.
They are continuously driving around what is supposed to be the United States, but which you and I are nerdy enough to know is Canada,
Yes.
because that's where they filmed it. And each episode isn't just a new monster, but they put at the bottom of the screen, it will say something like a particular town, comma, Arkansas.
Yeah.
So also really fun representation for, I would have loved to have been, I wonder how many people in the States were just casually watching Supernatural and then it's like supposed to be their town.
Their really small town in the middle of Deep South.
And if they're like, that's not right.
It doesn't look anything like Canada.
No, it's just, we're confused. But yeah, it's this, that was one of the things I loved about the show, that the music worked with its overall aesthetic.
Yes.
Of this is your kind of American road trip. They're always in motels. They're always at like getting a pancake stack at a diner. Someone's always pouring them coffee. It's all those iconic images from a classic road trip, which I like anyway.
Yeah.
But then you add in like some demons and stuff and I'm on board.
Yeah.
I'm sold. The fantasy element overlaid on the road trip element, perfect. I can't think of anything that's done that similarly.
No, not in exactly the same way. I think the other thing that I really liked is it very early on set up the idea of quite like high concept episodes. So I mentioned one already, which was the one where it's like Groundhog Day, where every time Dean dies, he comes back to life at the same point in time.
He's squashed by a fridge.
Yes,
we must
exactly. And there's another one quite early as well in the first few seasons called Changing Channels, where they end up being stuck in like a TV show world. So they'll be like in a game show and then suddenly they're stuck in some like soap opera show and it's still them and they're trying to like find their way out of these TV shows, but they're like stuck in these formats. And it turns out it's some kind of demon, trickster demon that's getting them stuck in there and they've got to find a way to kill it to get out. But these kind of really like high concept, almost like meta ideas was something that like carried on throughout even into the later seasons, and like really kind of, those are some of my favorite episodes, is like the really weird out there ones. And I think they kind of pulled on that and like made it, you know, they kind of dragged that idea of these kind of meta episodes even kind of further and got a little bit crazy with it when I think it's around season 4, Sam and Dean find out that in real universe, like in the show, in the real world, somebody is writing a book called Supernatural about 2 brothers called Sam and Dean who fight monsters and demons, and they come across this writer of a book about themselves. So in the show, the TV show is a book series that really exists because this person is getting messages from like heaven about their real life and has written a book about it and is some kind of like bizarre comic book prophet. And then in like season 10, they go to a high school where some kids are putting on a supernatural musical about Sam and Dean based on the books about Sam and Dean's life, which has come from messages from heaven. It's like, it just gets so deep and intricate and meta in this like bizarre way that, as you say, you can't keep up with unless you watch all of it. But actually, if you are watching it, the obsession level of getting into all of those intricacies is what kept people hooked, I think.
I can see this is going to be relevant to one of our categories in a bit of time. I have a question for you, Madeline. Did you, at any point, find this show scary?
Maybe a little bit. Like, it is a bit gruesome sometimes. Sometimes it's a little bit spooky, but only in like a surface level way.
Yeah.
And I'm not someone that would watch horror movies like by choice. I don't mind things that are a bit like thrillery and a bit scary, but if it really was properly scary like a horror movie, I wouldn't enjoy it. But it never gets to that point, I think.
I completely agree. I couldn't have watched it. I'm not a horror film fan either. In fact, I can't watch them. And whereas this struck the sort of tone for me that is comparable to like Buffy.
I knew you were going to say Buffy.
Oh, I've just been waiting to mention Buffy. Which I think is so comparable here, because that similarly experimented with a Monster of the Week format, but actually found it was stronger when it moved away from it.
Yeah.
That did multiple seasons, 7, and kept me entirely hooked through every single one. And I have rewatched that whole 7 series over and over again.
Yeah.
Because that is a female-led cast, so that must speak to me, obviously, in a slightly different way. But I couldn't have watched this if it was scary. And like Buffy, there are 1 or 2 episodes where I genuinely thought, oh, I'm a bit scared now.
Yeah.
This is
the odd one.
This has pushed me a little too far. But never, because we should say as well, the show is incredibly funny. Mm-hmm. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
At times. The 2 lead actors have brilliant comic timing, a brilliant comic rapport, and it's strong writing.
Yeah.
It's really strong writing at times. And I suppose, despite the number of deaths you just listed that both Sam and Dean suffer through, I never felt the threat level was genuinely concerning.
No, and it was never designed to terrorize the audience. That was never the goal, which is what you're trying to do with a horror movie, right? Is to really freak out the audience. It's never designed to do that. It's more designed to bring you along on the journey and to solve the mystery. It's more like a mystery show than it is a horror show.
The show is called Supernatural, but I was wondering, to me, this sits very much in a time period of sort of fangirl obsessions of ours that were almost all supernatural in some way.
Yeah.
We have talked about Twilight already. This was the same era. We were just coming out of the tail end of the last of the Harry Potter films, the films then having really wrapped up that whole era. But this also shared the screen and a TV channel with the Vampire Diaries.
Yep.
At the same time. You and I were just absolutely ready to eat up
anything supernatural
at this time. Yeah. And the fact this show was called Supernatural, somebody cleverly thought, there's an audience for this.
Yeah.
There's definitely an audience for this. And there absolutely was. Yeah. We should talk about, you mentioned the mystery of each episode, but of course there is an overarching mystery, isn't there? Because, fundamentally, how many people are allowed to know about what Sam and Dean do and who they are?
Oh, I mean, it's meant to be their kind of secret job. And again, This is one of those things that very early on is they can't tell anyone what they do. They've got to go essentially leave behind their whole lives, and their, Sam's got to leave behind any idea of going back to university, and he's got to go on this,
Isn't
this
he at Stanford?
Yeah, maybe doing law or something. I can't remember.
Dean sort of pulls him out of college, and I remember thinking, let him finish his degree. Come on.
And they've basically gone on this quest because their mother was killed when they were babies, basically, by some kind of demon, which is what set their father off on this mission to find the demon that killed his wife, and they take on that. Role when their father goes missing, and they want to find out where he is. They want to solve the mystery. They want to kill the demon, and that story probably only covers the first 3 or 4 seasons.
It does then have to evolve away from that, doesn't it?
And I do want to mention one of the ways in which it evolved in a really positive way. I
know what you're going to say.
Am I going to bring in my favourite character?
You are.
There's this character that comes in. Is it the beginning of season 3 or 4?
Don't look at me. He's your favourite character.
Anyway. And Dean has, at the end of the previous season, died one of the many times, as we've talked about. And this character saves him and brings him back to life because he is an angel. But he's an angel that's been brought down to earth and into a human body. And if we're talking about the humour of the show, a lot of the humour in the later seasons comes from this character, Castiel, who, the humour comes from this, epic angel being in this, very normal, very boring body. He looks like an accountant.
He does. He's wearing
just,
a trench coat.
And he just, doesn't understand human interaction, normal, but he kind of builds this friendship with Dean that is just like really sweet. They're like so different to each other. Dean's this like confident, sexy like guy who's like putting himself out there fighting things, and Castiel's this like kind of reserved, doesn't know how to interact with people because he's not a person, and like but got this epic power behind him, and they just create a friendship and a bond that is extremely endearing and loving, and is in many ways a really, really lovely part of the show, but also created a lot of controversy in the online world because...
How? And how do you know this? The controversy in the online world. This was just where you were.
This is where I was. But also all the other people.
Yeah.
So, have you heard the term queer baiting?
No, please explain it. So,
it's another kind of accusation you could throw at the show, which is in a similar way you could say, there's no good female characters. It's true. Similarly, you could throw it at the show that they were queer baiting. In what this means is they knew that the fan community loved the idea of Castiel and Dean falling in love in like actuality.
I see. Okay.
Because they loved each other in like such a like deep way, genuinely. But like, I mean, it evolved over time, and they really did. Like, they became so close. And a lot of people really, really genuinely believe that relationship was so close that they could be in a romantic relationship with each other, and they should be in a romantic relationship with each other.
Does the show ever go there?
Well, this is the thing. I haven't seen the last season, but there is a question mark in the last episode as to whether... Yes, maybe.
That's a major spoiler.
Yeah.
And do you mean the last ever episode? I really hope that some people, or whoever is listening to this, have watched all 15.
Oh, I'm sure.
Seasons.
And they will be like shouting at the phone, listening, you know, shouting at their phones, like, what are you talking about? You know nothing about this show compared to me. There are so many people, there's so much more obsessed. But the accusation is that the writers knew about this obsession, which they absolutely did, because people were writing like fan fiction, people were going to conventions and like saying this to them, like, we want to see this, and they knew about this and would play to it and tease it and make it so that these characters like almost had a relationship, or you could imagine it, but never allowed it to actually happen, so that, you know, your conservative fan base can kind of ignore it.
I did not know this.
Yeah.
Well, okay. And that never actually materializes as an actual storyline.
I'm not sure about the last episode. I think there's a little bit of a maybe in the last episode.
I'll skip ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to go watch it.
Season 15, episode whatever.
But anyway, the character of Castiel is an absolute favourite of, like, everyone who watched Supernatural. He's just, hilarious, and really kind of changed the tone of the show to be, instead of about the two brothers, it's kind of about the three of them.
That was the period in time where I had started to it was nothing to do with Castiel. I thought he was a great addition to the cast, but that's certainly where I started to come away from it.
Yeah.
But it was good of them to shake up the dynamic of, we had already by that point explored a lot of the brotherly tensions and brotherly love, and the introduction of, as you said, somebody who isn't human but has to sit with the rest of the human cast regularly and is in a position of learning how to be a human being. Is a very clever character.
And it opens up so much to comedy.
Yes.
It was really easy to play with that. All right, well, I think we've probably covered all the basics about, the parts of Supernatural that we managed to get through. So how would you rate Supernatural on the thermometer of spice from 0 to 100?
Okay. I am going to attempt to explain the rationale behind me giving it a 70.
Ooh.
And that is because, on the one hand, I genuinely think Dean Winchester was one of the all-time hottest characters on TV.
Yeah.
So, like, when I rewatched it, I just thought, I've never seen a more beautiful face. I just have never seen a more beautiful face.
It's so true.
Oh, so on the one hand, there is that. And the man does not age. He does not age.
He still looks great.
He still looks great. He looks great. So on the one hand, there is what I will call the Dean factor. But I didn't find the show managed to sustain a romance plot, or certainly as far as I watched, that I actually cared about.
No.
The Woman of the Week format never really meant that you got any interesting kind of spicy relationship stuff that held me on an emotional level. And while there are some, pretty intense love scenes, especially as the show goes on, they still aren't, because they hadn't built that depth of character development.
Yeah.
They didn't land for me like some of the real comparable, like slow burn relationships in other. This isn't Buffy and Spike, people. It's not Buffy and Spike.
Yeah.
So,
no, I completely agree. The core concept of the show is not the romance. It's only ever really like core relationship is between the brothers and then potentially with Castiel. And so the romantic side with any of the women is just not what the show is about, and therefore doesn't get the like treatment that it needs for you to be able to be like, yeah, I'm really into this. It's just, that's not what it's about.
What's your rating, Madeline?
Yeah, I probably put it about similar, or maybe even lower, maybe even a 60.
Okay.
Yeah. For the same kinds of reasons.
Yeah, I agree. This isn't something where we're going to get incredibly enthusiastic about the like deep. Yeah, we're just not going to go there. I'm going to keep that powder dry for so many of the other things that are on our kind of to-do list, definitely.
How about the badassery of this show?
Oh, so much higher.
Yeah.
So much higher. This show was cool. This category actually was kind of made for this show.
Yeah.
I thought Supernatural was so badass. They get, not only do Dean and Sam have demon and monster fighting weapons, but there's mythology and lore behind those weapons. But actually, well, I'll come back to that in the geekiness category. But yeah, it's about fighting evil on an episode by episode basis, and that often involves some very impressive or less impressive physical fight scenes. There was cool stunt coordination at times.
Yeah.
They drive around in this awesome car that's often a part of the whole set piece for their kind of crusade
We haven't even
against
mentioned
evil.
the type of car. It's the Impala, of course.
Oh, it's the
Can't
Chevy
believe
Impala.
we haven't said that so far. But no, I totally agree on the badassery. I think this gets like top marks, full, 10 out of 10 badassness. It like not even just like the fighting from their side and all the weapons and the salt they have to put out to get rid of the ghosts and everything, but also like all of the different monsters and types of things that they're fighting, like, are quite fun and badass in themselves.
Yes.
Like, you sometimes, like, suddenly you're like, oh, what's this weird thing? And suddenly you'll learn, oh my god, it's vampires. Now there's vampires in this show. You're like, every time there's like a new thing. You're like, oh my god, this expands the like universe of this show like even more.
The show, we should say, does not exercise restraint.
No restraint.
That's not what it's here for. It's like exactly that. We're going to give you vampires. Then we're also going to give you this kind of monster. And then we're going to do werewolves. Oh, we've not done ghosts for a while. We're back to ghosts.
Yeah, it's like if every folk legend and spooky story was real, is what this show is.
Except that, just before we move off of how badass it is, the other thing that keeps it in balance, that keeps it in check, but that I also love, was this element of the fact that they are operating in secret.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time they're dealing with fake identities,
Yes.
disguises.
Also badass.
Also badass, that's what I mean. But their badassery often boils down to effectively an episode by episode research project.
Yeah.
In an old school way. They're cutting things out of newspapers. They're using like Ask Jeeves.
Yes, yes. Sam's always got his like really ancient law school laptop that he opens up and like tries to find out about ancient myths and legends.
I watched this the other day when we were preparing for this, and I noticed at one point that Sam takes out a physical address book.
Oh, amazing.
I just thought, and we should say this show was not, when it was filmed, it wasn't sort of set in the past.
No.
This is very much a contemporary drama.
Yeah, but it started in about 2004 or 5 or so? 5 maybe, yeah.
And that's it, when you watch things from that period, that time period now, it does start to look dated. But no, 10 out of 10, badass. Or maybe, sorry, I'm going to revise that. I'm going to give it a 9 because I'm going to save my 10s for some other things.
Okay, all right. Well, on the last category then, if we're thinking about our obsession fuel tank, how full is that tank? Is it quarter full, half full, all the way full?
I'm giving it a quarter full. Ooh. And that is probably, I will caveat that by saying that's probably not reflective of the show properly, because I have really only engaged with what is evidently a minute sliver of the whole thing. But also, this is where it suffers from the Monster of the Week format, that the ability to build in, from the beginning, very long-term lore was fairly scant. I know you're going to tell me that comes in later. And yet, it did manage to offer some things. So I liked all of the stuff about that how to combat demons was formulaic. So you've already mentioned the use of salt, which we see in so many things about this kind of stuff. And you have the silver bullets. There's specific types of daggers. So there was something to dig into, but certainly in comparison to some of our other fangirl obsessions, not as much.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably give it a 50% over a quarter full, like a half full tank, but I'm not going to give it any higher because I think actually it doesn't get that much more deep as you go. I mean, it does in that they create more story and they create more lore around it, but it felt like they were creating that as they were going along, which is actually never... doesn't allow you to really... It's not like something where they've planned out the whole 15 seasons right from the beginning, and so where you can go back to the beginning and spot the clues, because the clues weren't there, because they were making it up as they were going along. So the lore is probably slightly shallow because of that, and therefore doesn't allow you to have that full deep obsession experience like you might do in some other of our books that we love or something like that.
That might be one of the reasons that I just couldn't quite hold on and prioritize it, as maybe other things took priority or other obsessions and things to be fangirly about crept in, that, as you say, that I didn't feel the clues were being laid. I wasn't being breadcrumbed in those first 2 seasons in a way that I thought, I need to watch on because I need to know who did that thing, or who is ultimately going to be responsible for this, or who's going to win the Game of Thrones, or who's going to this. I didn't think that there was long-term structural mythological planning at work.
And there wasn't.
Okay,
so I have one last question for you before we finish this podcast. And that is then, will you go back and maybe pick it up again at season 4 and see how it goes? Are you persuaded to give it another go?
I had a real smile on my face when I've been re-watching certain choice episodes.
Yeah.
And was reminded of my, basically Supernatural and I had gone through this extended breakup that we'd never revisited. I hadn't re-watched it. It isn't something like Gossip Girl that I will rewatch every time it comes or Buffy that I will rewatch every year. It's my revisiting it was the first time I'd revisited it for a while, and I enjoyed it more than I thought. It felt dated, and yet my enjoyment of it hadn't dated. Would I watch it again lengthily in a sort of considered way? If I did, I know I would enjoy it. But I'm somehow intimidated, I think, by the number of seasons.
That's too much.
I just feel like I barely make a dent in it, even if I did 2 more seasons. And how many episodes are there in a season?
22.
Yeah. This isn't something where each season is 7 episodes. It's not White Lotus or something where it's a contained number of episodes. No, this is a serious time commitment.
Yeah. And I think that's what I think I might be persuaded to do my internet sleuthing again, find out where it is that I've heard that the last few seasons gets better again. And I might try and pick up and see if I can watch the last couple of seasons just to feel like I've really completed it. I don't mind if I've skipped between like 8 and 13. That's fine. I'll see if I can get to the end and see how Sam and Dean manage to conclude their story.
Would you judge me so much if I start at the beginning of season 15 and just ask you for a summary?
That's fine.
Yeah. Just like, please tell me what's happened, and now I'll just watch the end. Because I would like to see it wrapped up. I think that's right. I would enjoy that.
All right. Well, I think that's it on Supernatural. I hope everyone's enjoyed listening to our ramblings. And
we'll ramble more next time.
Yeah, we'll apologise to all the people who have watched all 15 seasons.
Or congratulate them. Frankly, well done. Well done.